Okay, so we're looking for a contention. Twitter won't water your flowers. How social media is destroying our sense of community. Is it for or against? It's against. All right, we can make that more specific later, but it's probably something to do with destroying community. Yeah? Okay. All right, let's have a look. Before you read it, if you paused it, just note that for some reason this paragraph is repeated. So just put a box around this paragraph and cross it out. Alright, so we're going to figure out who the audience is. We do that usually by figuring out who the author presents himself to be. Erickson, author of his new book, Before You Wake, Life Lessons from a Father to His Children, host of Atlanta's Evening News. And then it gives the radio, broadband, right? So, father to his son. We are now talking to parents. Alright? If he's wanted to present himself as a parent, right, then he is usually talking to parents, right? Evening news, right, on the radio, probably talking about older parents, right? Our church friends, we're talking about religious, right? This is our audience. We might be able to add to that later. Okay? Alright, so how are we going to start? With a little byline, right? YouTube, Twitter, and other social media will not show up with a home-cooked meal when we're ill, but our church friends will, right? And again, that kind of supports that bit. Twitter won't water your flowers, right? Again, this supports the older, younger people generally not worried about their flowers. Okay, how does it start? It starts with the most emotive thing we've had so far. 11 years ago, the week before Christmas, I looked into my wife in the eyes and told her she had 6 months to live. Our heart breaks, right? Like, it starts with a personal story, yeah, to garner sympathy. Right, and it does, right? Aggressive form of lung cancer. Oh, thank God, it turned out to be wrong. Huge story, and a lot of details. Inhaled particles encapsulated in the lungs, 12 hours, pray, right? Connection to religion, cry, hold my 1-year-old. He's got a 1-year-old child. He's considering whether, that's considering, raising a child by himself, right? Yeah, so that's garnering this sympathy, right? 2016 presidential election, it might be suggesting that somehow politics involved, although it doesn't give us an indication at this point as to which side of politics that leans, although I feel like it's probably the conservative side, but I don't know. Intensive care unit, you know what I mean? On and on it goes. Fly to Georgia for tests, personal turmoil. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much in here about trying to garner sympathy, right? And then, what is it? A full page, well, maybe 2/3 of a page down, we get to the point, right? What I have realized is that social media is probably doing more to destroy our sense of self-community than anything else in the modern world, right? He comes in crushes into his contention, right? So this whole section is there to gather sympathy, and he has them. He builds up a connection with his audience. They're like, they feel for him. They empathize. They get into his shoes. They live with him. They, understand him, right? And at that moment, when he is their friend, and when he is the person that they relate to, he comes in with his very sensible and very calm opinion. Well, maybe not so calm, right? With words like destroy, anything else in the modern world, right? Including, mass torture and genocide, I would assume. Anyway, yeah. So, there's some hyperbole, right? Whether he considers it to be hyperbole or not, it's hyperbole, right? Certainly. Anyway, okay. So then he moves on, right? And so he said his dramatic thing, and so this is the point where he might start to lose people, right? Social media is probably doing more to destroy. Well, hey, wait, I use social media. I have a sense of community and self. Blah, 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 blah. Right, okay. Fewer people go to church. Ah, yes, well, I'm a religious person, and I think more people should go to church, so now I'm back, right? He has me back again, doesn't he? Because I am an older religious parent, right? Most likely conservative. Participate in local communities. Okay, I use social media, but, I certainly think people should use them in local communities, so he has me back again, right? He's built up the relationship, he's shocked me with his contention, and then he's kind of calming me down again to get me back into it. Okay, turn to worlds of their own construction. This is finally where we have the second argument, right? And it's this echo chamber argument, right? Have you noticed that we're seeing the same arguments again and again? They don't have to deal with competing or differing opinions because in their worlds there are none over time. Competing opinions drift, so it's a very procedural, okay, and an argument from evil, right? Okay, and our willingness to engage in online. So, he's trying to build up the story, this narrative, right, of what a social media junkie looks like, right? And it's this disconnected, atheistic left-winger, I would say, right? And we don't want that because we're parents and older religious people, right? YouTube will not show up. Of course they won't. My next door neighbor and people from my local church will, because again, this connection to religion. If I should die before I wake, right? Okay. And that then moves into argument 3, which is connection to community. Okay, we start traveling as a herd, right? It's going to cause issues. Okay, so continue to have a look through. You don't necessarily have to agree with how I place my arguments, by the way. You don't even have to agree with my audience, but pick an audience, go through, find the arguments, and then go through and justify how those arguments are presented to convince your specific particular audience. Okay. Make comments below.